Today basically we'll be covering MATLAB's basics, specifically coding's basics. So we'll discuss how to create variables in MATLAB coding, matrix operations, creation of .m file, creation of functions in MATLAB, loops and switch case, if else conditions, logical operators use, some coding examples, or you can say programs. At last we'll try to make some based upon all above points. We'll be creating some programs. We'll see how to write that. And apart from these, we'll see a few basic commands also, some of the basic commands you can say. Basic MATLAB commands. And let's say if you want to comment any line, comment any particular text so that MATLAB compiler doesn't read it as a code, as a command. So how can we do it? You just need to add a percentage symbol at the start of that line, and that whole line will be treated as a comment now. Okay, so that's why you are seeing this in green color here in MATLAB coding. If you might have observed, here there were different combination of colors used, and if you run this particular editor file, this particular program, then it will show some errors because it will try to read it line number 10 as a code, as a command. So nothing will be, you know, obtained at the output but error only, because there is no valid command written here. It's just some, you know, random words are there, right? So MATLAB won't understand it. MATLAB need to understand it is in its own language, or you can say in in its coding, right? So for that you need to learn MATLAB syntax, or in any programming language you need to learn its syntax first. Only then you can write or make it understand. Okay, so let's start with
सर
हाँ.
सर हम जैसे आपने बताया इसमें कमेंट करने के लिए सर इसमें कोई शॉर्टकट है क्या सर? जैसे बाकी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज में होता है सर कंट्रोल प्लस डी, ऐसा कोई शॉर्टकट है क्या इसमें सर? मतलब सर जैसे बाकी प्रोग्रामिंग
Okay.
लैंग्वेज में होता है सर बाकी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज में होता है कंट्रोल प्लस फॉरवर्ड स्लैश करके मतलब कमेंट हो जाती है लाइन, तो इसमें भी होता है क्या सर कुछ सर शॉर्टकट?
दिस वे आप चाह रहे हो कि आप कोई एक लाइन ना करो कमेंट, जैसे कि अगर मुझे एक लाइन कमेंट करनी है तो उसके लिए आप कर सकते हैं कि कीबोर्ड से
बाद
नॉर्मली परसेंटेज सिंबल कर लिया। उसके अलावा अगर सपोज करो आपको ये पूरा कोड सपोज वो करना था, या कोई लेट्स से ज़्यादा लाइंस आपको कोड करनी है, तो आप सिंपली कंट्रोल प्लस आर कर सकते हो। वो इसका एक कीवर्ड शॉर्टकट है। कंट्रोल प्लस आर करते ही वो सारा सिलेक्शन हो जाएगा। अगर आपको चाहिए था कि आपको पूरा का पूरा कोड करना है तो कंट्रोल प्लस ए से पूरा सेलेक्ट कर लो और फिर कंट्रोल प्लस आर करके आप उस पूरे कोड को कमेंट कर सकते हो। इफ यू वांट टू रिमूव इट जस्ट प्रेस कंट्रोल प्लस टी। ओके, अब ये वाला सेक्शन क्योंकि 2 बार कमेंट हो रखा था इसलिए अनकमेंट नहीं हुआ। इसको सिलेक्ट करके कंट्रोल प्लस टी प्रेस करो, फिर से वो अनकमेंट हो जाएगा। फॉर कमेंटिंग कंट्रोल प्लस आर एंड फॉर अनकमेंटिंग कंट्रोल प्लस टी। ठीक है।
ठीक है सर।
Okay. So let's quickly have a look at these again. This is editor. Basically, जो आप यहाँ MATLAB desktop पे देख रहे हैं, this portion is editor. In editor, you will be creating .m files, or you can say your whole program will be saved here. As you can see, there are various tabs open. So these are nothing but various MATLAB programs. These are basic MATLAB programs. Different programs are listed here. So we are working currently in Untitled this file. So if you want to save it, you can save from here. So by saving, first obviously you'll be renaming this file. Okay, so now its name is changed to MATLAB tutorial.m. So this is how you create a .m file or any editable, re-editable MATLAB file. You can directly write your commands here also in command window, but then there is this disadvantage that you can't write multiple lines here because execution in command window is line by line execution. Whatever you will be writing, it will be immediately executed. Okay, so you cannot write multiple lines here. uh, so for that reason, if you have to create a lengthy program, for example, you were previously working on these programs like RL circuit program, or for a matter, right, in your let's say from application point of view, if you are making any project or you are working on any typical application area, so your program will be lengthy. By default it will get lengthy. So for that reason you need to work in editor itself so that you can easily write your uh, whole bunch of codes or bunch of commands, and for easy understanding you can add comments in it. You can at the start of the program you can just add a comment like what is the purpose of this particular program. In this way you can write some piece of information in comments so that later on when you revisit this particular file, so it is very easy for you to understand why you have written that particular set of commands. Okay, what is the main purpose or what is the purpose of this program, right? So in this way you can write through comments. And in MATLAB another thing is like uh, the spaces are kind of meaningless. Let's say if you write it in this way, a is equal to 5, a1 is equal to 10, a2 is equal to minus 10. Okay, let's say you simply write this piece of code and you try to run it. So your output will be visible in command window. You can resize all these blocks, this editor, command window, or you can see it in a new tab also. For that you need to undock it from here by pressing Control plus Shift plus undock U. That way this command window will be appearing separately. Okay, so a is equal to 4. Sorry, this was earlier piece of code which we directly run in command window. Our program's output is from here. MATLAB tutorial output says a is equal to 5, a1 is equal to 10, a2 is equal to minus 10. So what did we learn from here? Let's just dock it back. That spaces are kind of meaningless in MATLAB coding. In many programming languages, these matter, like where you are writing. Basically, this is kind of indexing or indenting, you can say, in terms of Python. So here, these are meaningless. If you immediately write it after this equal sign, then also it is very fine. If you add one space or multiple spaces in between the name of variable and the defined value, then also it is fine in MATLAB. MATLAB will simply see this equality sign basically. So it will treat as left side of this equality as a name of variable. So our name of variable here is a, and the assigned value is 5. After equality, it will look for some numeric value, and this value is directly assigned. Uh, Another thing important to learn here is in some of the programming languages, whatever you are giving as input, even from user defined point of view, in some of the languages, that input, if you are writing, let's say 5 also, this will also be treated as a string. It won't be treated as a numeric value, or you can say as a number. Rather, it is treated as string, as is the case in case of Python. But here, it is directly taken as a numeric value. It won't be treated as a string. In Python, you need to, I guess, convert it from string to integer first, and then only you can operate on it. Then only you can perform mathematical operations on that particular number, or on that particular variable, right? But here in MATLAB, it will directly be treated as a numeric value, and you can directly operate on it. Let's say you have run this code, run this program, MATLAB tutorial. What happened? Your output was displayed in command window, right? Your saved file might be appearing in your current folder somewhere here. This is the file, MATLAB tutorial, which we are working upon currently. So what is the role of current folder? It will be having all the programs saved here. Whatever you are working upon and saving, it will be directly saved here. Right. This is the editor. I guess now you are familiar with its role. This is the command window. And this is the workspace. Whatever variable you have created and their assigned values will be appearing here. Previously, I might have run another program. So uh, variables from that program are also appearing in workspace, and the values are here. For this program, these are the variables a, a1, a2, their value 5, 10, and minus 10. Okay, so this is the role of workspace. It's you can say it's kind of RAM for MATLAB. Let's say you need to perform some mathematical operation on it. Let's say you wanted to multiply it by constant value 2. So new value will be assigned to an by default variable. By default, MATLAB creates this variable ans answer is equal to, earlier a's value was 5, 5 into 2, 10. So this value 10 will be appearing in your output. So basically, whatever operation you are operating in on any variable, this variable should be defined in workspace first. Let's say, let's say you clear this variable from workspace. Clear A. Now A's value is gone from workspace, and now you try to repeat earlier command. To access earlier commands, you just press, uh, you know, how to say this. There are, in generally, there are four arrow symbols in your keyboard: up, down, left, and right. Right. So you just press this up arrow, which is right, next to your shift button in your keyboard. So you just press up, and your previous commands will be appearing in command window. Okay. If you press down, so newer commands will appear. So let's say we wanted to run this command, just enter. Now it will give an error. Now MATLAB is saying undefined function or variable a. For MATLAB, now a's value is not defined. Okay, so it is very important, if you are working on performing some operations on any variable, that variable should be defined in workspace first. Only then you can perform any operations on that variable. This is the role of workspace. Workspace is kind of RAM of MATLAB. For any computation purpose, you need to have your variable saved in workspace first. Okay, this is the command history where you can see earlier commands, whatever commands you have executed so far, those will be appearing here. You can access those commands directly from here also. Double click on it and that particular command will be run. Okay, so far we had a look at MATLAB desktop. These basic, you know, blocks we have discussed. Next, here is the your toolbox. You can say we are working in editor, so accordingly, functions or operations or options are appearing for editor only. Next, you can have different options from different tabs. Okay, for plotting, for home, you can have this from here. For to run the editor file, you need to select editor here, and then you can run it from this arrow, this green arrow. Okay, so we have seen how to create .m file so far. This file is nothing but .m file. Where it will be saved, just go to documents, your MATLAB folder. By default, your files will be saved in this particular document. So this is the file which we created just now, MATLAB tutorial, file type, M file. So this is the .m file which you have created. Okay. Any doubts so far?
सर जो हिस्ट्री है सर वो क्लियर हो जाती है जैसे जैसे अपन लोग एक बार अगर बंद करेंगे मैटलैब को तो हिस्ट्री क्लियर हो जाएगी या फिर क्लियर नहीं होगी वो हमेशा ही रहेगी जब भी हमने मतलब एक्सेस किया है उसको वो पुराने वाले जो भी कोड को तो वो हमेशा रहेगा जो कमांड हिस्ट्री है उसके अंदर वो भी रैम की तरह ही काम करती है कि एक बार हमने अगर डॉक्यूमेंट को बंद कर दिया मतलब मैटलैब को एक्सेस करना बंद कर दिया तो वो हिस्ट्री क्लियर हो जाएगी फिर दोबारा से स्टार्ट होगी या फिर क्या रहता है सर इसका सिनेरियो हिस्ट्री का
Okay. Okay. I'll tell you. Apart from it, any other doubts? जो भी हमने अभी तक डिस्कस किया है उसमें किसी को और कोई डाउट हो तो वो भी पूछ लो, देन I'll answer. Okay. So addressing your query, Aryan, sorry. This command history will remain as it is. It will, as you can see from here, it will even maintain a record as per date. You can say date-wise record will be maintained. Okay, on this date you have executed certain number of commands. On this date you have executed. So even if I close this MATLAB, so your workspace will be cleared. This is the only thing which will be cleared. When you reopen it, this editor will be shown in this way only. This file will by default start. All these files will appear here. This command window will also be cleared. You'll see blank white space here. And this command history will remain as it is. If you restart MATLAB, you can still have a look at your previous executed commands in command history. Only command window and workspace. These two will be cleared if I close the MATLAB and reopen it. Okay.
ओके सर
Okay, fine. No other doubts. So let's move ahead. So out of this, we have discussed or we have seen this creation of .m file. So you just basically whatever you are writing in editor, this file will be saved as .m file. These are very useful actually. Next, how to create variables. Basically, this is the way. MATLAB by default treats it all the variables as you can say matrix or vector. Okay, if I'm basic operating entity in MATLAB is matrix. Basically, that's why it's named MATLAB Matrix Laboratory. So whatever I'm defining, though there are uh, syntaxes also for certain things. For example, if you are going to define any constant value variable, single value variable, you can directly write it as this. Okay, so B is defined. If you are defining some vector, this will be the syntax. You need to use these square brackets, start the square bracket, then enter your values, whatever values you want to enter in this particular variable. You can have name of variables as per your need. Let's say you are working upon load flow and you need a variable for bus voltages. So you can name the variable as per your need so that it is easier for you to understand later on that this particular variable is assigned for storing voltages of different buses in that way. Okay. Similarly, you can have different examples. Let's say first bus is having 1.01 voltage, second is having 0.02 voltage, 0.99, third bus is having in this way. So V bus will be having voltage values in per unit, 1 per unit or 1.02 per unit or 0.99 per unit. Fine. Similarly, if you are going to save resistance one, just follow this practice for naming of variables. In any programming language, there are certain keywords, reserved keywords. You cannot name your variables same as your reserved keyword for that particular language, right? So it is rather a good practice just to add one or two after your normal syntax here. Let's say resistance, though resistance won't be a keyword in MATLAB, just to avoid that mistake, it is a better practice just to add one or two or three or any number, or you can use underscore resistance RLC for series RLC circuit, let's say. So your equivalent resistance is, let's say, 475 ohms. You can define the variable in terms in this way. I think I'm able to convey to you this thing, that just avoid using such names for variables which might be a keyword in MATLAB or in any programming language. Okay. For example, else is a keyword in MATLAB. So you cannot name any variable with this name. So either you can do anything like this. Now it won't be treated as a keyword. Okay, now it will be treated as a variable. Okay, that's one thing. Next, whenever you are defining vectors, or you can say single dimension matrix, try to use these small letters, small a. Small a, it is rather a convention. It won't create any syntax error in MATLAB, but it's just a convention for vectors. We generally use small or smaller alphabets for representing a vector, and for matrices we use these capital letters. Capital A is equal to, let's say, some matrix 1 2 3 4 5 6. So now this capital A is representing this matrix which is having a dimension of 2 by 3, 2 number of rows, 3 number of columns. Okay, this semicolon is used just to indicate that next line is started. This is one row. After semicolon, next row values are indicated there. Okay. Previously, we defined this vector a is equal to 1 to 3. By default, if you are writing it as 1 space 2 space 3, it will be treated as a horizontal vector. If you want to specifically create a vertical vector, what you can do, 1 semicolon, 2 semicolon, 3, close the brackets and enter. Now your vector A1 will be vertical vector 1, 2, 3. Its dimensions now will be 3 by 1, 3 number of rows and 1 number of columns. So it's a column vector, and this one was row vector. Its dimensions were 1 by 3, 1 number of row and 3 number of columns. Okay. And how can we see the dimension of any matrix? One option is, let's say, define another variable z, which will be storing the values. We defined a variable, a matrix here with the name capital A. So let's just check its dimensions. So size command can be used to check out the dimensions of a matrix. So A is having 2 number of rows and 3 number of columns. So it is a 2 by 3 matrix. Fine. So for similarly for vectors, we can use, let's say, z1 is equal to length command. These are basic, some small, very basic commands: length, size, CLC, clear all. So length of a vector is 3. So 3 is having, sorry, a is having 3 number of entries. ठीक है, a का size क्या था, ये था. So accordingly you can check the length if you want to know the number of elements or number of entries in any particular vector. Then you can check it by this way, or you can try this thing also. Okay, then it will give you proper size. 1 is to 1 by 3. 1 is the number of row and 3 is the number of columns. So you can, by this command, you are able to comment on a matrix or a vector, that whether it is a horizontal vector or a vertical vector. Okay, so let's create a very small program, new program, and it will be used for this application only, to check whether a particular vector which we are going to, going to make the user enter it. So first of all, add a comment so that it will be easier for you to recall what is the purpose of this particular program. Okay, so this is the purpose of this particular program. Whatever the user will enter will check whether the entered vector is a horizontal or a vertical vector. Okay, so first you need to take the input from user. For that, we can do this thing. Let's say A is the name of, use this command input, use single quotes. In single quotes, you can type in the instruction which you want to show to your user. Next, we are going to check its size. Okay. The semicolon at the end of this line, what will be the purpose of this semicolon? Basically, it will suppress its output from appearing from, in command window. How? let me just show you. Z is equal to 5, Z1 is equal to 6. Okay, if these two commands are run, I'm copying these commands from here and pasting these in command window. Just enter. So Z is equal to 5. It is shown in output. Z is equal to 5, but Z1 is equal to 6. It won't be appearing in output here. But this command is executed just like this one. After execution, its value 6 is stored in Z1 variable, which will be appearing here in workspace. You can see Z1 value is 6. Okay, so that particular command will be executed and the value will be saved in workspace also, but it won't be shown in output on command window. Okay, so that's why we add this semicolon at the end of this line. So this line will be executed normally, but its value, the value of variable z won't appear here. Okay, so that's why we are using. Now somebody might ask, then what is the need why we are using it? Even if it is appearing in the command window, so what? So reason for this is, this is a very small program, so there won't be any, you know, any much significant effect here, even if you are removing it or you are keeping this semicolon. But in lengthy programs, your command window will be flooded with executed lines, right? So you might miss some important point. You have to then scroll up all the way up and you have to see, okay, this is the value of a, this is the value of some definite variable. So in lengthy programs, your command window will be having so many, lines which are, non-significant to you. You might be focusing on some particular variable, let's say this variable. So what you can do, you won't be adding a semicolon after this code in your editor. Let's say you want to, this variable z is important to you, critical to you, you want to show its value in your command window, so you won't be adding a semicolon here, but to all the other lines you can add a semicolon. Okay, so use of semicolon is clear. For now I'm adding a semicolon after this. So now you have size of entered vector in a. Okay, next you need to add some logic. Let's just run this program first. Horizontal or vertical vector. So when you will be running it, let me add two commands here, clc and clear all, just to clear the screen, and variables from workspace. So enter a single dimension matrix or vector, 4, 5, 6. So because we are having a semicolon after this line as well as after this line, that's why nothing is appearing in the command window or as output. But these values are saved in variable a and z. You can see from here, or you can just type their name here, a. So a is a vector which is having these values. Z contains its dimensions, one row and three columns. Okay, so far we have written this much code only. So next, what we need to do, we need to add some logic. That by using this logic, we are able to comment whether it's a vector, horizontal vector, or a vertical vector. So how can we do that? Anyone?
So we can put so we can put if statement.
Mm-hmm.
So वही से हम सर if statement अगर लगा दे तो किया जा सकता है.
Right, right. बिल्कुल उसी से होगा. So we need to add if else logic here. How can we do that? And if else, even after, if we are familiar with if else logic, then also, what should be the logic, main logic? What will you write?
सर फर्स्ट वाला जो टर्म है जो साइज का, अगर वो ज्यादा है
Mm-hmm.
दूसरे वाले टर्म से, तो वो अपना मतलब वो क्या बोलते वर्टिकल वाली हाँ, मतलब वर्टिकल वाला वेक्टर है। हाँ, अगर जैसे अगर फर्स्ट वाला जो टर्म है वो छोटा है सेकंड वाले
Mm-hmm.
टर्म से, सेकंड वाले जो भी
Mm-hmm.
टर्म आ रहे हैं, जैसे यहाँ पे 1 और 3 लिखा हुआ है, तो ये अपना
Mm-hmm.
हॉरिजॉन्टल वेक्टर है। तो ये लॉजिक हो सकता है सर।
ये लॉजिक आपका पार्शियली ट्रू है। मैं ये वाला प्रोग्राम भी बना के दिखाता हूँ जो आपने बोला, और कैसे वो एक केस में फॉल्स होगा वो भी बताता हूँ आपको। Before that, let's keep this program on hold. Let's just have a look at matrix operations first, because we are going to need some of the things from there. So let's just quickly create a matrix. So for accessing the elements, particular element, what we can do, you need to know these. Okay, after being executed, this matrix will appear like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this entry from mathematics we know is denoted as uh, row is in indices will be written as row versus column, right? So row versus column, by this logic, what will this indicate? Element of A matrix in first row and first column, which is nothing but this element, right? So to access any particular element from a matrix, you need to know this. Just use the variable name of this variable, whatever variable you have created. Here we have used this name A, so we are writing A. Then use small brackets for mentioning the indices. Let's say we are going to mention 1 is to 2. So what is this entry? What should be the value of A 1 is to 2? A 1 is to 2 denotes first row and second column. First row and second column. Value should be 2. Let's check. 2. ठीक है, तो अगर किसी पर्टिकुलर मैट्रिक्स के हमें पर्टिकुलर एलिमेंट उठाना है, तो इस तरह से हम उसमें यूज कर सकते हैं रो वर्सेस कॉलम लॉजिक यूज करके। ठीक है, थर्ड रो सेकंड कॉलम, row 1, row 2, row 3, third row, second column. Element is 8. So this element is appearing here. Next, this was one way to create a matrix. If we are having, if you want to create a particular vector directly, you can do this way also. B is equal to 1 colon 10. What will this colon indicate? Basically, from 1 to 10, all the entries will be saved in this matrix B. Let's copy it and try to execute this command. So this will be the result. B will be a matrix, or you can say a horizontal vector, which is having these entries starting from 1, ending on 10, with a default increment of 1. So 1 plus 1 2, 2 plus 1 3, 3 plus 4, 3 plus 1 4, and so on up to 10. Now you can change this default increment also. How? Just add another colon, and let's say you want a decreasing matrix from 10 to 1. So default increment you can set to -1. Execute this command. So starting from 10, next value will be 10 minus 1, 9. 9 minus 1, 8, up to 1. Similarly, you can change this default setting to any setting. By default, it will, if you are, you know, writing this thing, sorry, I was creating an increment matrix, so I should have written something like this. Yeah. So if you are writing this thing, this is very similar to writing this 1 is to 10. Why? Because by default, it will have an increment value of 1 only, plus 1. And here also you are specifying increment value as plus 1. So this middle term is nothing but the value, the factor which by which you want to increment or decrement your value. So let's say I want a fraction of this. So now number of entries will increase. So as you can see, it is going up to column 1801. So this much is the size of matrix now. Okay. You can check the size of matrix also, not by counting, obviously. You can just write this command, the name of variable. What was the name of variable uh, that we used here?
So I think capital A.
It's B, I suppose.
It's
It's
capital B.
B. Yeah, capital B. So this much is the size now. One row and this much of columns. So you can change this value and accordingly you'll get the matrices. Okay. So this is the by increment factor or decrement depending upon the sense, the sign which you are going to use, plus sign or negative sign. If you are going to use plus sign, you can have these variables or these values as kind of arranged in terms of increment, starting from a smaller value to up to a higher value. If you are going to use a negative sign, start from a bigger value to a smaller value. Okay, so fine. Next, in matrix operations, let's say you have a matrix B is equal to, also I forgot to tell you, if you are writing this thing, B1 is equal to, let's say you are using a comma instead of space. Even now, both of these commands are very much similar. This will create a vector with entries 1, 2, 3, a horizontal vector, and B2 will also create a horizontal vector. So comma and space are similar here. Mhm. Now it will run. So B1 is having 1, 2, 3, and B2 is having 4, 5, 6. So either you write this way, that is also fine, or you use a space instead of comma, that is also fine. Now for creation of multiple rows, you can use this thing. So what will happen now to size of B2? 4, 5, 6 in first row, 7, 8, 9 in second row. Next, we want to create a new matrix which is nothing but a combination of these two. So how we can do that? B1, we can catenate these vertically, right? B1 is size of B1 is 1 is to 3. Size of B2 is 2 is to 3. So we can place these like B1 at the top, then after B1 in the next row you can have entries of B2. So for that we need to write this in this way. Okay, let's execute this command and you'll get to know. So what we did, we have catenated B1 along with B2, and the catenation is vertical catenation. So either you can write this way: C is equal to B1 colon B2. For horizontal catenation, if you try to catenate these two horizontally, there will be an error. Why? Because dimensions of B1 and B2 are not proper for horizontal catenation. Why so? Let's see. An error in horizontal catenation. Why? Because for catenating it horizontally, B1 as well as next matrix should have single row. Then only they'll appear in single row kind of arrangement, right? These can be catenated vertically. Why? Because they are both the matrices are having equal number of columns. For vertical catenation, the number of columns should match. For horizontal catenation, number of rows in both the matrices, or there can be more than two matrices also. So the condition is number of rows should be same for horizontal catenation, and for vertical catenation, number of columns should be same. Okay. Or you can use this particular command also. I have clicked on this, so it will be opening a help window. This is the syntax for whenever you are confused or you want to know the syntax of anything, you just go to help here, search document, and you can type in whatever you need help with. For example, here you can type concatenate or catenation, horizontal catenation. So this is the command horsecat to catenate two matrices horizontally. Let's copy its syntax from here, right here. You just need to have same number of rows first. So rather, we are going to use here vertical catenation of B1 and B2. As we have, as of now, we have only two matrices, so we are going to use this command, enter, and the result is same. But they are B1 and B2 are vertically catenated. Okay, so this matrix is created. Either you can use this command or you can use this command, vertcat. Both will produce same result. Okay, and for horizontal catenation, either you can write in this way. Only condition is number of rows of B1 and B2 should be same. Okay, how? Let's say instead of B2 you use B3 and create B3 equal to 0, 1, 0. So your B1 was 1 to 3, B3 is 0, 1, 1. So they both are horizontally catenated now. Or you could have used this command instead of vertical, use horizontal. Instead of B2, use B3. Same result. Okay. So now coming back to this program we were discussing. So you were right. We need to add if logic here. So I'll first create this program by your logic. Okay. So Z will be having two entries. Whatever matrix or single dimension matrix or vector the user might have entered, it will be saved in A. Its size from size command will be having two entries in Z. One first entry will be number of row, second entry will be number of columns. Okay. So to access its first entry, you can write this thing. Okay, as we have studied in matrix operations, how we can access any particular element. Fine. So if first entry of Z is less than 1 comma 2, either you can write this way, or I guess there are only two entries, so it should work directly also. Simply writing Z of 1 and Z of 2, that should also produce same result. Let's just have this for now. If first entry is less than second entry, this is the command we are going to use to display some text to the user. Else vertical vector. In MATLAB, you need to end these kind of statements, logical statement, if else, and afterwards for every corresponding to every if statement, there will be one end statement, or else there will be error. You need to end this if else statement with this keyword end. Okay. So this should do by your logic, Aryan. So let's run this file. To enter a matrix, you need to first type square bracket, then 4, 5, 6. It will work very fine for a horizontal entry. Entered vector is a horizontal vector. Let's try it again. And it says entered vector is a vertical vector. So far so good. Okay, it's working very fine, this logic. So if first entry is less than second entry, or you can say the number of rows are less than number of columns, then it's a horizontal vector. Else, in else condition, there will be like uh, even if the number of rows and number of columns are equal, okay, then also it will say it's a vector, vertical vector. And if number of rows are greater than number of columns, then also it will say it's a vertical vector. Okay, so this way we can create a normal program. So your logic is working very fine. Very good, Aryan.
Sir, I have one doubt, sir.
Mhm.
सर, हाँ हाँ सर, हम लोग क्या सर, जो अपनी सर अभी आप लोगों ने वो लगाई थी ना वेक्टर पे लेंथ वाला एक प्रॉपर्टी करके लगाई थी, तो अगर वो जो लेंथ लेंथ की चीज अगर वो मैट्रिक्स पे लगाए तो भी वो काम करेगी क्या?
लेंथ अगर
वो
मैट्रिसेस पे लगा है,
हाँ जैसे वो वेक्टर पे लगाया था ना अभी सर, वेक्टर पे लेंथ निकाली थी वेक्टर की,
हाँ,
तो उसको मैट्रिक्स में निकाले तो क्या देगा वो? कॉलम, नंबर ऑफ कॉलम्स देगा, नंबर ऑफ रोज देगा, क्या देगा?
नहीं, टोटल नंबर ऑफ एंट्रीज देगा।
टोटल नंबर ऑफ एंट्रीज देगा, ओके।
नहीं, आई गेस डिफरेंट है रिजल्ट।
कॉलम दे रहा है ना?
कॉलम दे रहा है, बट लेट्स ट्राई ऑन दिस थिंग आल्सो। It's giving number of columns. So for matrix, I guess different format होंगे, probably something like this should be there. Nope. Generally, we use this command length for vectors, because in case of column, you will be getting, sorry, in case of matrix, you will be getting only number of columns. So generally, we use this command for vectors and size command for matrices. And you can check here in the help also. No, it's giving only example for vectors only. So that is the usual practice. In case of matrix, it is giving number of columns. So if you need to find number of columns, then you can use this command for matrix, or else you'll have to use size command. Okay.
ओके।
If anybody else is having any doubts so far, he or she may ask. Next, let's go to next topic. So now you are familiar with point one, how to create variables. Second, third, next is functions and loops. You are familiar with if-else conditions also. So next, let's try loops. Then we'll create some function. Okay. I'll give example of for loop. Though you have already used in your lab also in one of the experiment in RL circuit. Let's continue this program only, which we were creating for user. Okay, yeah, this one. Let's continue this program. As we are going to enter vector, so we can use int command also. So once you have stored this its length in z1, then you can create a loop for I z1 to, sorry, not z1, for I. Okay, let's not write the logic here, just simply use values like 1 to 3. For I is equal to 1 to, sorry, for 2 you need to write colon. uh, from 1 to z1, you can say z1 is nothing but it will show number of entries will be here, so you can say last entry will be corresponding to this value only, z1 only. Okay, so next you can write some logic here. Let's create a simple program. And MATLAB is case sensitive. This variable small a will be treated as a different variable than capital A. MATLAB is case sensitive. Small a is different, capital A is different. Let's run this program. So first it is asking you to enter. Okay. So what we did here, first you you took an input from user through this command, enter a single dimension matrix or vector. So the user entered this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What happened next? Uh, Based upon this logic as we run previously, so it will be commenting whether it's a horizontal vector or a vertical vector. So for this entry, it's a horizontal vector. Next, after coming out of this if else logic, next it will be uh, compiling this, running this particular code, this particular line. Z1 is equal to length of A. So length of A is stored in Z1. Z1 is 6. For this entry, there are 6 number of elements in this vector, right? So 6 is stored in Z1. So now this loop will run for I is equal to 1. So initially value of I will be set to 1. So I की वैल्यू अभी 1 है, a of 1. So first entry of vector a will be equal to a of I. I is nothing but 1 at present. So a of I is first entry of this small vector a. First entry is 1. So 1 into 2. This 2 will be saved as first entry of capital A. Okay, so next this loop will run again with an increment of 1. By default increment is 1. After 1 next value will be 2. So it will be accessing second entry now. Value of I is now 2. So second entry of A will be stored as second entry of small a into 2. Second entry of small a was 2. So 2 into 2, 4. 4 is stored in capital A, second entry of capital A, and so on. This loop will run until I is equal to Z1. Z1 is nothing but you can say last entry of small a, which is nothing but 6. Sixth entry. So it will access sixth entry of small a. Small a sixth entry is 6. So 6 into 2, 12. So after running this last entry for I, it will come out of this loop through this command end. Next, it will execute this line. Display is nothing but display the value of A. So it is displaying value of A here. So this was the simple program to demonstrate use of loop. In MATLAB, in each loop, you need to end this loop with an end statement, just like if else logic. If else for if else, for corresponding to every if there will be an end, corresponding to every for there will be an end. Similarly for while loop and other loops also. Clear so far? So you can create for loop in this way. Next, let's create a function. I'm going to use these set of commands only. So I'm copying these commands. Control N, new file, Control V. So let's go to top of this. Any output variable x is equal to what should be name of this function? So what we have done here, we have created a function with the name square vector. So what will it do? We'll provide it with input y. This is the input argument of this function. This is output argument for this function x. So y is its input. So whatever we are will be transferring in y from somewhere else, from some different program, that value of y will appear in this, and it will calculate its length. Then it will run this logic which we have already used. So basically what it will do, this function will do, whatever input vector will be transferring to it, it will square its elements basically, right? As it did here, this program did here. So whatever will be the input vector, its elements will be squared, and that output, this output vector a, capital A, will then be transferred to this output variable, or you can say this output argument of this function x, and its value will be, transferred back to the calling function. In each programming language we use like different logics. For example, this is our, let's say, our calling function. So what will happen, will make the user enter some matrix or some vector, rather you can say single dimension matrix or a vector. It will be entered from a user. Then instead of using this thing, commenting these lines, so these won't run. Okay, commenting this one also. So let's call that function here. Instead of using this piece of code, let's just call that function. So for calling that function, we need to write its name here, right? So let's create another variable z. Let's say z we have already used. Let's just name it as out1. Okay, so out1 will be equal to, write name of that function file which you need to call, square vector, enter something which will be transferred as input argument to it. What we need to transfer, this entered matrix A. So A will be transferred to that function file. That function will run certain set of commands, and output from that function will now appear in this variable out1. So what we need to do next, just display this variable out1. Simple program. Let's run it. Enter any. Okay. Here is the output. It is squaring each element. Not squaring, rather just multiplying it by 2. So I should have named this function as, instead of square, double element, you can name. Oh, okay, we have not saved this file with its name. Whenever you create a function file, save it using its name. Name of this file should match with your function name, this thing. If these two are not matching, then it won't work properly. Okay, I hope it is clear. how to create a function, how to call it in some different function, and how can you get output from that particular function. So this is one example. Next, we can create some different function also for clarification if you are still having some doubt. Or if you are having particular to this particular program, you can ask now if you are having any doubts. Or I'll create another function just for clarification. Important things to remember here is this thing. One, you need to write this keyword function initially at the start of program itself. Whenever you are declaring some file as function, it will for MATLAB, it will separate this file from your normal .m files. This is a normal .m file, and this file will be now treated as a function. So let's say we are creating a function to calculate area area of rectangle, area rect. You can name, you can choose any name while naming it. X comma y, two input arguments, single output argument z. So z should be area of a rectangle. What will be area of rectangle? Nothing but x and y, right? So z is defined this way, and z will be your output argument. So this is a function. Just two things to remember. One, use this keyword at the beginning of this program. Second, save it with exact same name. You cannot write like some different name here and your function's name is different. This name has to be exactly same, but you have written here, area rect. Okay. Next, let's just call this function. How can we call it? Let's define two variables now. A is equal to 4. One side of a particular rectangle is, let's say, 4 meters, which is written in A. Another side is written as 15, let's say, B, length and breadth, basically. So these two variables, length and breadth, will have to transfer these two variables as input arguments to this particular function. And accordingly, our area will be calculated. Let's say area 1 is our output. So you just need to call this function, write its name for calling it, enter the input arguments, which you need to transfer, length and breadth, and it will compile the area. It will run this code, and accordingly it will calculate z. Z will be transferred in area 1 here. So area 1 is 15 into 4, 60 meters square. I hope this thing is clear now, how you can create functions.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Yes, you can ask.
सर ये वेरिएबल z को क्यों डिफाइन कर रहे हैं फंक्शन के नाम से पहले? उसको नीचे उसको मल्टीप्लाई करा रहे हैं इसका एरिया निकालने के लिए.
I didn't get your doubt. One thing is, I believe you are asking why we have written this z here. This z is different from area 1. Why we have created these two separate variables? That's what you are asking, right, Mukul?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Actually, whenever we create a function file, the whatever variables we are using here, z as output argument or x and y as input argument, these things, x, y, and z, these three variables are local to this function. These are not global in nature. Local variables are these variable will be defined only within this function. These won't appear here in Workspace. So to outer to this function, you can say to outer world, these variables are unknown. There is nothing like x or small y or small z. To outer world, there are a, b, and area 1. Okay, so this is how function works. Whatever you have defined, like a is equal to 4, it will be appearing here. B is equal to 15, it will be appearing here. Now these a and b are nothing but these two values are transferred as input argument into x and y. A is transferred into x, b is transferred into y. whatever z is being calculated, this z is being transferred to outer world in this variable area1. Even if
मतलब सर
yeah,
सर जहाँ पर हमने एरिया निकाला है एक्स इनटू वाई फील्ड, अगर उसको एक वेरिएबल में अलग कराया है ना, तो अगर वो नीचे वाला भी जेड ना हो, उसके अलावा मतलब कुछ और वेरिएबल उसका नाम रख दो जेड की जगह नीचे वाले का, तो फिर कुछ क्या अंतर पड़ेगा क्या?
let's say I'm writing just to clarify your doubt, I'm creating these variable names. Okay, so now uh, in outer world we have defined a and b, these two variables, input variables, right? Even if the name of variables is same in name of variables in your input argument here in function, even if these are exactly same as your outer variables, there won't be any effect. Even if these are different from these, there won't be any effect, because within this function, this a is simply a value 4. Okay, this has nothing to deal with this name here. Either this name can be anything. You can name it as Ram, this as Sita. Still, it will just treat it as a number 4. These a and b are locally defined to this function. This area3 name, this name is known only within this function. Outside this function, this will be transferred into a separate name, into a separate output variable name. As of now, I have defined area3 here and area1 here. To outer world, area1 will be known only. Okay, so if I run this particular file now, uh, let's say this file is run, still you'll get 60 in area1. To outer world, this area1 is known. It will be saved in workspace. If you try to, see the value of area3, this function is undefined. This function is just a local variable within this function. I hope I answered your query. If you want to, use a function which use a variable which is defined in outside world as well as within a function, then you need to specifically mention it as a global variable. Global, let's say x1. Okay, and it and after defining it as x1, even if in the outside world you have defined x1, let's say x1 is equal to 5, and you are not even transferring it to this function, still it will treat x1 is equal to 5. It won't say x1 is undefined or any error won't come, because then in that case x1 is global. It is known everywhere within the function, outside the function as well. But by default, whatever convention we are using here, by default, these variables are local to this function, and whatever variable names we are using outside, those have nothing to deal with these variable names. Okay, Mukul?
Yes sir, yes.
Okay. Any other doubts? Anybody else?
सर यदि एक से ज़्यादा फंक्शन बनाए तो देंगे।
Sorry, Akash, can you please repeat?
सर हम फंक्शन एक से ज़्यादा बनाए तो उन्हें कैसे सेव करेंगे, किस नाम से?
क्या एक से ज्यादा बनाए?
फंक्शन।
Still, I'm not able to get your query. फिर से बताना एक बार, क्या बोलना चाह रहे हो? क्या एक से ज्यादा बनाए? फंक्शन, अच्छा फंक्शन कह रहे हो, ओके। एक से ज्यादा फंक्शन अगर बनाए तो सेम प्रोग्राम में हम उसको यूज कर पा रहे हैं या नहीं, ये आप पूछना चाह रहे हो आई गेस।
यस सर, उसको
ओके,
करेंगे।
ठीक है। कोई मतलब सेम फाइल में आप एक से ज्यादा फंक्शन नहीं बना सकते, अगर ये आपका क्वेश्चन है कि यहाँ पे एरिया रेक्टेंगल की सिमिलर वे में मैं नीचे लिख दूँ एक और फंक्शन, एरिया 4 इज इक्वल टू एरिया ट्राइंगल, उस टाइप से। तो एक फाइल में आप एक से ज़्यादा फंक्शन नहीं बना पाएंगे, हाँ, बट ये है कि सेम प्रोग्राम में एक से ज़्यादा फंक्शन को आप कॉल कर सकते हैं। जैसे हमने यहाँ पे किया था इसको, ये वाले फंक्शन को यहाँ पे कॉल किया था। तो सिमिलरली इसी प्रोग्राम में नेक्स्ट लाइन में मैं लिख सकता हूँ इस इसका नाम, इस फंक्शन का नाम एरिया रेक्ट ऑफ समथिंग, उसके अकॉर्डिंगली हम उसको वेरिएबल्स की वैल्यूज ट्रांसफर करके उससे आउटपुट ले सकते हैं। वो चीज़ पॉसिबल है, बट ये दोनों फंक्शंस एक डिफरेंट डिफरेंट फाइल्स में डिफाइन होने चाहिए। जैसे ये फंक्शन यहाँ पे डिफाइन था, फंक्शन इस फाइल के नाम के साथ, सेम फाइल के साथ आप ये सेव करेंगे। जो भी आपने फंक्शन का नाम रखा है वही आपकी फाइल का नाम होना चाहिए। सिमिलरली आपने कोई एक सेपरेट फंक्शन और बना लिया, तो एक से ज़्यादा फंक्शंस आप बना सकते हैं, लेकिन हर एक के लिए एक अलग डिफरेंट एडिटर में डिफरेंट फाइल्स बनेंगी। ठीक है, फिर उनको एक ही प्रोग्राम में कॉल करो या अलग अलग में कॉल करो, वो पॉसिबल है, बट एक ही फाइल में 2 या 3 फंक्शन बनाना पॉसिबल नहीं है। ओके। क्लियर हो गया ना आपका डाउट?
यस सर।
ओके, ठीक है। तो आप लोगों के लिए एक सिंपल सा टास्क है, अगर आप मोबाइल में या खुद से कुछ ट्राई करना चाहें, या तो ऐसा कुछ ट्राई कर सकते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल आपने कुछ नंबर एंटर करवा लिया और उसका आप फंक्शन के थ्रू फाइंड करवा लें कि वो नंबर इवन है या ओड है। बिल्कुल सिंपल सा एक प्रोग्राम बनेगा इस चीज़ के लिए, वो वेरीफाई करने के लिए 2 से डिवाइड करके देखना है। या तो उस सेंस में बना सकते हैं, या फिर एक इनबिल्ट कमांड भी है इसकी, उसके लिए आप सर्च कर सकते हो, अकॉर्डिंगली आप बना सकते हो। तो एक बार खुद से थोड़ा ट्राई करना। जो लोग एसआईपी में थे वो लोग आई गेस ऑलरेडी कर चुके हैं, बट जो लोग नहीं थे उनके लिए भी एक सिंपल सा टास्क हो जाएगा। मोबाइल ऐप में ट्राई कर लो, या फिर लैपटॉप है तो लैपटॉप में मैटलैब पे ट्राई कर लो। सिंपल ये ट्राई करना है कि एक प्रोग्राम बनाना है, यूजर से नंबर एंटर करवाना है सेम इनपुट कमांड यूज़ करके। वो नंबर एंटर होने के बाद आपको ये एक ऐसा फंक्शन बनाना है जो आउटपुट ये दे देगा कि यूज़र ने क्या नंबर एंटर किया है, वो नंबर इवन था या फिर एक ओड नंबर था, सिंपल ये बताना है। तो ये आप लोगों के लिए एक असाइनमेंट टाइप हो गया, ये आप लोग खुद से करके देखेंगे। ठीक है, नेक्स्ट वी आर लेफ्ट विद दिस थिंग। फंक्शंस हो गया, इफ एल्स कंडीशन हो गया है, लूप हो गया है, एक स्विच केस पेंडिंग है आप, और लॉजिकल ऑपरेटर कैसे यूज़ कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, एग्जांपल्स तो हम साथ के साथ करते चले रहे हैं, और कुछ बेसिक कमांड। फाइन फाइन। I'll just write some of the commands here. आप लोग चाहे तो स्क्रीनशॉट ले लेना, या फिर बाद में खुद से उन कमांड्स को प्रैक्टिस करना, या वीडियो लेक्चर में बाद में देख सकते हैं। ठीक है, बिल्कुल सिंपल सी कमांड्स हैं, इनको आप सर्च करके देखना हेल्प में। ब्रीफली मैं बता दूंगा ये क्या क्या काम आ सकती हैं। डायरेक्टली कुछ लोगों का डाउट ये रहता है ना कि खुद से हेल्प में क्या सर्च करें, मतलब कैसे पता लगेगा। तो हम गिविंग यू सर्टेन कमांड्स।
बट सर हमारे पास तो सॉफ्टवेयर ही नहीं है, तो सर इसमें हेल्प कहाँ से आएगी सर?
हेल्प आप डायरेक्टली ये चीज़ गूगल करना, मैथवर्क्स का एक लिंक खुल जाएगा, वहाँ पे आपको इसके सिंटैक्स के साथ ये कमांड क्या करती है सारा कुछ वहाँ पे लिखा मिल जाएगा आपको, बिना सॉफ्टवेयर के भी, क्योंकि गूगल तो चल ही रहा है।
ओके सर।
आई मीन आज की डेट में आप लोगों के पास सॉफ्टवेयर नहीं है, किसी के पास कभी तो होगा, बट ये कुछ उस टाइम पे एकदम से नहीं मिलेंगे ना कमांड्स। तो इसलिए मैं आपको बस आइडिया देना चाह रहा हूँ कि कौन सी कमांड कैसे यूज़ हो सकती है। ठीक है, तो एक क्विकली मैं बता देता हूँ कैसे कौन सी कमांड क्या करती है। CLC एंड क्लियर ऑल से आप ऑलरेडी फेमिलियर हो। CLC clears the command window, clear all clears the workspace. Then help, if you write help इन कमांड विंडो तो आपका हेल्प बॉक्स हेल्प वाला जो विंडो है वो डायरेक्टली ओपन हो जाएगा। और एल्स इफ यू नीड हेल्प विद सर्टेन पर्टिकुलर कमांड देन यू कैन टाइप हेल्प आई एंड आई कमांड के कोरस्पॉन्डिंग हेल्प विंडो ओपन हो जाएगी। ठीक है, दैट यू कैन ट्राई। और नेक्स्ट है आपका ज़ीरोस। सो ज़ीरोस से क्या होगा बेसिकली, ज़ीरोस कमांड के साथ आप इसमें जो भी डायमेंशंस यहाँ पे मेंशन करोगे ब्रैकेट में, इवन इफ यू स्टार्ट राइटिंग इट विल हेल्प यू, अपने आप से एक पॉपअप आ जाएगा, उसमें भी आपको ये हेल्प मिलता है कि कैसे क्या सिंटेक्स लिख सकते हो आप। फॉर एग्जांपल आई राइट ज़ीरोस 3, तो उस डायमेंशन का ज़ीरोस का एक मैट्रिक्स क्रिएट हो जाएगा बेसिकली, सिंपली एक स्पार्स मैट्रिक्स यू कैन से, ज़ीरोस का एक मैट्रिक्स क्रिएट हो जाएगा। ठीक है, सो ज़ीरोस के बाद नेक्स्ट है आई। आई से बेसिकली आपका एक आइडेंटिटी मैट्रिक्स क्रिएट हो जाएगा। ठीक है, आइडेंटिटी मैट्रिक्स। देन सिमिलरली वंस, अगर आपको वन जो आपकी एंट्रीज हैं, एरे की एंट्रीज हैं उसमें वन चाहिए तो आप वंस ये कमांड ट्राई कर सकते हो। लेट्स से आपके पास एक मैट्रिक्स आ गया, उसका अगर आपको डिटर्मिनेंट फाइंड करना है तो उसके लिए आप DET, डिटर्मिनेंट के लिए DET शॉर्ट में एक कमांड है, वो आप ट्राई कर सकते हो। टू मैट्रिसेस हैं, आपने दो मैट्रिक्स बना लिए, उसका आप डॉट प्रोडक्ट चाहिए तो डॉट कमांड है, क्रॉस के लिए क्रॉस कमांड है। ठीक है, किसी पर्टिकुलर मैट्रिक्स का अगर आपको रैंक फाइंड करना है तो रैंक कमांड है। जो भी कमांड बोल रहे हैं उसके बेसिकली कुछ ना कुछ आपको उसमें वो देना पड़ेगा ना, क्या कहते हैं, इनपुट आर्गुमेंट। ठीक है, तो इस पर्टिकुलर मैट्रिक्स के लिए जो रैंक आएगा वो 3 आएगा, तो आप डायरेक्टली रैंक फाइंड कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे। और सम जो कमांड है, सम बेसिकली हर कॉलम का सम करके आपको आउटपुट दे देगा। नेक्स्ट मैजिक कमांड है। मैजिक कमांड आई गेस रैंडमली एक मैट्रिक्स क्रिएट कर देते हैं, जो भी आप इसमें ट्रांसफ़र करेंगे रैंडम एंट्रीज के साथ। ठीक है, नेक्स्ट है प्लॉट। प्लॉट command you have already seen. When you want to plot two variables you can write plot t comma x. Let's say if you want to plot x versus t, x on the y-axis, t on the horizontal axis, then you need to write plot t comma x this way. Hold on. Hold on command is used when you want to hold, let's say at the same time you want multiple graphs in a single window, in a single figure window you can say. Let's say you want to plot voltage as well as current, voltage across resistance in the same window, then you need to write hold on, then only they'll appear in a single window, single diagram you can say, or else each plot will be appearing in a separate figure, separate diagram. Okay, so hold on is used for that. To stop holding the graph you can use hold off. Next, subplot. If you want multiple plots within a single diagram, within a single figure, then you can use subplot. Subplot, like you want a graph here, then next here, then next here, then next here. So you can have 4 smaller graphs, 4 subplots inside a single figure. Okay. Next is this UI get file. User interface UI. Get file is to get a file as an input. In any programming language, what we do, like you will be dealing with data, certain data matrices. Okay, in any language, these terms are common. Then data retrieval, once you have saved or stored data set in a particular matrix, next you want to retrieve the data. That is one thing with context to matrix. Let's say now you have created some data file, some bigger data file, and you want the user to select from multiple data files. So for that you can use this command. I'll just quickly show you. Let's say your data is something like this. For a simple 24 bus system, IEEE 24 bus system, you'll be having various kind of columns in data like bus number, bus voltage angle, reactive power generation कितना है, overall active power generation की maximum value कितनी है, minimum कितनी है, बस टाइप कौन सा है, डिफरेंट डिफरेंट उसमें वो हो सकते हैं उसके कॉस्ट के रिलेटेड, दिस मच डॉलर पर मेगावाट आवर. So all these entries are stored through columns. So this is why this commenting is useful. Let's say you have created this data which is having all these information. Right now you might be knowing that first column is indicating bus number, second column is indicating voltage in per units. Right now you might be remembering all these things, but after 10 days, let's say, then you will be like, okay, this eighth column, what was this eighth column? So that's why we need these commentings. Like eighth column is corresponding to Q load, reactive power load. So this is a value for all 24 buses, bus 1, bus 2, bus 3, and bus 4, and so on up to 24. This is just one example. Based upon your application, you might be having some different data sets. Okay, so let's just imagine that you have data corresponding to 24 bus system, 33 bus system, 32 bus system, 14 bus system, 7 bus system. Different data are available, and all the data are saved in separate data files. Okay, then you want the user to select particular data file. For that, you are going to need this command, UI get file. How will this file run? Initially, you are clearing everything. Then you are defining using this command. You are mentioning that in the particular folder, I want only .m files. All .m files will be listed. Then you are showing the user select data file that he needs to select. He needs to make a selection amongst those available or shown files, right? Then based upon its value, if path is equal to 0, it will show an error. Select a valid data file. You have not selected a valid data file. Else, if he has selected a valid data file, then it will compile like lf is equal to length of data file. So based upon length of data file, it will read its name basically. Let's say its name is dat56.m. So it is having 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 entries in it. So last two entries are subtracted as these are corresponding to .m. So whatever is left, that name is evaluated then. So what, in short, what it will do, it will load that particular data. How? Let me just show you. If you run this file, it will prompt you like this, that you need to make a selection. These are available .m files and you just need to select particular data. These are simply functions. Okay. Let's say I select some different data files, data 24 bus system, and open. So that as of now, it might be having some different format or some error is appearing. Or else if I might have selected this file, so its data will be run and a variable would have been created in Workspace with the name bus. This variable might be having all these values saved in it. Then further on, you can operate on this variable and you can do various compilations, various computations. Okay, I don't know where this file is lying as of now, data get 56. Anyways, idea is clear. So once you save your data in some data files or you want to load it later on, then you can use this command UI get file. Fine. Next, where were we? This thing, yeah. We were discussing various commands. Okay. So this is clear, UI get file. Next is solve. If you are having multiple equations, let's say 2x plus y, 4y is equal to 5, and similarly you are having certain equations. So through this command and proper syntax, you can solve those also. Then is for command. For is you are familiar with it now. For, and you'll have to use an end at last also. Similarly, in case of if else also, remember to use this end keyword. Input command, you are familiar with it. Sqrt is square root. Let's say you want to find square root of some value. You can directly use this command, square root of, let's say, 4. So your answer will be 2. If you want to store it in particular variable, then you can write it as y is equal to square root of, let's say, 9. So then y will be saving it. By default, it will save in a variable named ans. Next, length and size. You're familiar with it now. These commands are related to plot. Once you plot any figure, it will be having certain labels, x-axis label, y-axis label. It will be having certain title. It will be having certain legends, right? All those can be edited through these keywords, through these commands. So we are done with basic commands also. I hope some of it might be useful to you. Next we have switch case pending. Okay. सो तो नहीं गए ना? समझ आ रहा है? Okay. Thank you, Sakshi. Fine. I'll give you an example of switch case and logical operator also.
Excuse me, sir.
Mhm.
सर वो ये कह रहा था सर, आज जो हमें सबमिट करना है असाइनमेंट सर, वो प्रैक्टिकल, तो उसकी सर 1-2 दिन डेट आगे बढ़ा देंगे, एक्सटेंड कर देंगे आप प्लीज।
यस सर, एक दो
ठीक है।
दिन बस बढ़ा दीजिए।
सर वो एक टाइप में थोड़ी दिक्कत आ रही है सर, वो करके फिर हम 1-2 दिन में पक्का आपको कर देंगे सबमिट।
ओके ठीक है, मैं उसकी डेट बढ़ाता हूँ, नो इश्यूज।
थैंक यू
सर
सर।
एक्चुअली एक डाउट था सर।
हाँ पूछिए।
सर वो जैसे आज आपने सबमिशन का लिंक ओपन किया है तो कुंजन मैम ने भी सबमिशन का लिंक ओपन कर दिया, तो जो आगे के जो एक्सपेरिमेंट्स है वो कुंजन मैम को ही सबमिट करे।
As per your roll numbers, you can submit up to 70 can submit in my model page, and beyond that on Punjan Man's model page.
ओके सर।
Okay. So here we are in this one we are seeing this logical operator. So there are different logical operators: logical AND, logical OR, logical NOT, like that. Okay, so how we can use these with our conditions, our if else conditions. So first thing is syntax is double and. Okay, so let's say you want the user to enter a number between this range 15 to 100 only. So you can write like if y is less than or equal to 100 and simultaneously y is greater than or equal to 15. So it is lying in this range only, including 15 and 100. Okay, then you can display you entered a valid number, else you can give a warning invalid entry, like that. So this is how you can use logical operators. So this is a run example. Let's say if I enter 16, it will say you entered a valid number. Let's try it again with different entry. Let's enter 14. It will give you a warning invalid entry. Warning messages are displayed with this color. Okay. Instead of warning, you could have used a display also. I just wanted to show that you can use a warning message also. So warning will be highlighted in this color, and whatever you will be writing there, that will be given as a text of this warning. I hope it's clear. If you have doubt or you haven't understood this logic, then you can ask me, or I'll then move on to switch example of switch case.
Sir, I think that is enough for today, sir.
Okay, this is the last example, then we'll stop. So if you run this file, we have created a switch case example here. You're making the user to select either 1 or 2 or 3, only these 3 entries. So let's say if I enter 1, so it will say, okay, this is the case of case 1, you can say. It belongs to case 1. So it will display or run the commands written in case 1 only. And then it will come out of the loop. Next, if you enter 2, it will skip case 1. It will directly go to case 2 and it will print you enter 2. Similarly for 3, let's say if you enter something else, it will say enter within the specified values only. Okay, I hope it is clear. So we can use switch and case in this way. Let's say you have to make choice between red and blue and green and so on, different colors. Then you can create accordingly different cases. Case 1 can maybe belonging to case of red. Case 2 might belong to blue color or green color and so on. So based upon your application, you can use this thing switch and case for various cases. And if it doesn't belong to any of the specified cases, you can use otherwise. If you have any doubt in it, you can ask. Or then that's all. That's all for today. I hope after today's lecture, you might be comfortable with MATLAB coding. So what say Kartikeya?
यस सर अब तो वही सर प्रैक्टिस करके देखूंगा इधर उधर आपने तो 2-3 साइट बताया तब देखता हूँ उस पे क्या क्या होता है
या श्योर कोडिंग तभी आएगी जब प्रैक्टिस करेंगे मेरे एंड पे मैंने आपको काफ़ी कुछ आज बता दिया है आप लोग एक बार इस वीडियो को फिर से देख लेना अदरवाइज इफ यू आर हैविंग एनी डाउट्स और यू कैन आस्क राइट नाउ आल्सो
नो सर अभी तो नहीं है सर बस वही रिक्वेस्ट है सर कि थोड़ा असाइनमेंट का डेट बढ़ा दिया ऐसा लैब रिपोर्ट का डेट थोड़ा बढ़ा दिया
Yeah, that I'll change. Okay then, you all can leave.
हेलो
हाँ सिद्धार्थ
सर एक लास्ट जो हमने सॉफ्टवेयर लैब में किया था आरसी और सर्किट का उसका मैंने आपको एक मेल भी किया था डाउट के लिए उसका बता दीजिए थोड़ा सा
आई गेस मुझे मेल मिला नहीं है आपका आपने किस आईडी पे किया है
सर MITS वाले भी किया था
Okay, I'll check your mail and revert back to you.
Yes.
Okay, Siddharth, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Can you tell me आपने क्या टेक्स्ट वगैरह यूज किया होगा so I can easily locate it?
So mail normally था mail तो.
Fine, I'll search for it and reply to you on your email. Okay.
सर लास्ट वीक आज की डेट आज ही का होगा.
Today is 24th September.
Yes, sir.
Fine, I'll revert back to you. I'll see your mail. Any other doubts?